question of the hour is, why did they release the hostages? What was that all about? What is in it for Hamas?
I've been thinking about myself today.
Once they're done with this pause and the hostages are released, some of them anyway, they're gonna go right back to bombing. So, what is the advantage? What is the gain that Hamas gets? You gotta think about why people do things. There's a reason why they're doing this. And it's concerning to me that we don't know and no one's talking about it.
You remember that night we met? Thought you looked so fine.
So, there's a lot of stuff that doesn't make any sense. And I don't really hear anyone even talking about this stuff. Everyone's kind of talking about the same thing. It's like one person says something and then other people say the same thing and everyone's repeating the same thing. And you can tell a lot of people aren't really thinking for themselves, which is why they're all headed down the same path. But when I look at what's happening, I'm seeing a lot of things that just don't really add up. The kinds of people that would do the inhumane, grotesque things that we saw on October 7th. The people that would kill all those civilians, women, children, elderly. Why would those same people, after having Gaza so decimated and so many people killed by the IDF, why would those people that did what they did on October 7th not do what you'd expect people like that to do in that kind of scenario? You have all of these hostages. Why weren't we seeing videos released of beheadings of some of these hostages? Why were there not threats made that for every day that the IDF continues bombing Gaza, one hostage is going to be killed or something like that? I mean, I would hate for that to be the reality, but that would match the behavior of people that would do what happened on October 7th. That kind of savagery connects with what I'm describing. What would hold back those kinds of people that are okay killing women and children? What would hold them back from doing some really brutal things to their hostages and recording it and sending it out with threats? And then even further than that, the IDF themselves are saying that the hostages were returned in good condition. So not only do they not threaten to kill them or actually kill them and record it and use that to sort of strike back at the IDF, you better stop what you're doing, otherwise this is what's going to happen. Not only did they not do that, but they also took care of the hostages. So Hamas killed more combatants as a ratio than IDF has, right? A high percentage of the people that they killed on October 7th were not civilians. The IDF has the reverse. An overwhelming majority of who they're killing are civilians. None of this makes any sense. And then we look at this releasing of the hostages. You got to think, put yourself in Hamas's shoes as best you can. You have these hostages for what purpose? For what purpose do you keep hostages, if not to use as a weapon against your enemy? And how do you use hostages as a weapon if you're just basically, it's like a kidnapping? You kidnap them and you take care of them, and then you just release a bunch of them while not really getting anything in return. I mean, on paper, people would say, hey, they got the ceasefire, but what good is a ceasefire? One of my subscribers, I'm not going to call your name, but you know you are, said something ridiculous to me about Hamas is going to use the ceasefire to regroup. And I'm just like, what are you talking about? All this bombing that we've done, and again, overwhelming majority of who's getting killed are civilians. Hamas doesn't seem to be really getting affected by it, but yet they're supposedly the target. Hamas is so not affected by it that they're able to protect the hostages, have them taken care of, says the IDF, and are able to release them without revealing their position. So they're chilling underground, not getting impacted by these bombs, Just the civilians are getting impacted, not so much Hamas. They have these hostages, able to take care of them and protect them from these bombings and release them, right? People that are chilling like that inside their tunnels don't need a ceasefire to regroup, right? So what are they getting out of this deal? Israel's getting back their hostages. But what's Hamas getting? And Hamas is not going to give up hostages without getting something in return. And it can't simply be that we're getting a ceasefire. Because again, what's the point of a ceasefire if it's only 4 days and then they're going to go right back to doing the bombings? Like I don't get it. And why would you even give anything up? You look at what they're doing. Look at what IDF has done. What is it? 14,000 civilians have been killed by the IDF, and Hamas says, "Oh, okay, well, you kill all those people, but here's some hostages back." I really wish I could see a transcript of the negotiations. I'd love to see those conversations and how they went. I'd like to see what Hamas was focused on in those conversations. What did they ask for? What kind of things maybe they got turned down for. I just would like to see how that conversation flowed to try and understand perhaps what they're up to. But if I were to speculate, as I mentioned before in my community tab, hiding explosives on them and having it go off would make sense with what's been happening, combined with October 7th. The other thing is infecting them with some kind of disease or something. So again, using them as weapons. The other thing is embedding some kind of suicide bomber, not actually a bomber necessarily, within the hostages. I think Israel is smart enough to figure that one out, but in theory, one of the hostages maybe claims they don't remember anything. They got a head injury or something, and they don't remember their name or something. So you have someone who's there, and it seems like something's wrong with them, and they can't remember anything, and you just put them in a medical facility, and they're trying to figure things out. Meanwhile, the person's actually pretending. The only thing is, how can they do a strike? Because they're not going to be able to sneak in a bomb. So they pull this off, and then at some point in time they escape. Because they're not in custody. They're just treated as a hostage. But you escape and then do what? I don't see what they could do that would be worth it. I mean, best case scenario, you grab a gun from a soldier and shoot a bunch of people. But I mean, at best, you kill 3 people, 4 people, before they kill you. So I don't know. I don't see how that would work. But that's another thing I would think about. Other than that, as a PR thing, I mean, it definitely does look good on their side that not only do they take care of the hostages, but then they're returning them. So Israel is, the IDF is killing all these civilians and killing children and women and babies and blowing up churches and all this kind of stuff. Meanwhile, Hamas is returning hostages that were taken well care of. It's not a good look for the IDF. It does not make the IDF look very good. And as a bonus, it's a reminder that there are these hostages. Some may say, I don't know if they're even alive. Well, here you see 24 of them are alive. So when you're going around bombing stuff, just remember, you might be bombing your own people. So I don't know. I mean, that's another thing in theory, but none of the stuff I've came up with, I feel like is likely. So, like in a game of chess, it's bad news if you don't know what your opponent's up to, because by the time you figure it out, it might be checkmate. I hate to attribute that kind of advanced strategy to an organization like Hamas, but I mean, I guess they did pull a little something off on October 7th. Never mind the slaughter, but that whole operation, going through the gate, different areas, and the flying in. I mean, so let's just say they're not completely dummies. I mean, I might say that they're dummies on the attack in general. I mean, pulling it off, planning it, okay, great. But in terms of doing that, and then you see what the consequences are, I don't know what the thought process would have been of like, hey, we're going to go do this thing. I mean, you must know that there's going to be a major retaliation. So I don't know what would have been the thought process there. But I hope that, you know, members of the IDF and United States intelligence folks are thinking like myself and trying to figure out what Hamas is up to, because very dangerous to be caught off guard again. I don't know. I think it's very important that we know what was behind this hostage release from the Hamas perspective. Very, very dangerous to not know that. What you don't know can hurt you. Anyway, this is the Baby Channel. Debate me in the comment section below. Click on the like button, subscribe, smash that bell. Be well. What do you think they're up to? Comment below.